This is episode 18 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest is Zasha Smith. Zasha, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to read in your bio and then we'll get right into it. Zasha was a licensed civil engineer on Maui and Hawaii who worked for 10 years at a private firm in utility construction plans for hotels, shopping centers, and subdivisions. But then she turned into a full-time real estate investor who built her $3.8 million residential portfolio of single-family, multifamily, and short-term rentals in Hawaii, while also making a profit over $1 million, fix and flip 17 projects, 6 more currently in progress. But I think it's actually more now. Let's start. How did you get going to this much so quickly? Because I think people want the scale, but they don't understand how hard it is to get where you've gotten to so quickly.
Well, I think the important part is figure out what your goals are and then how you're going to get there and what you want your team to look like. So for me, it was important that I still have the flexibility with my kids. I'm 36 years old. I have 2 kids. I have a family. It was really important that along this journey, along the way, I still spent and had a lot of time with them. So I envisioned for my company or my business not to be, a big flipping company or a big wholesaling company with a bunch of employees. That takes a lot. Whenever you're doing a startup or starting a team, it takes a lot of time. And so that's not the direction I wanted to go. I wanted to leverage other people through partnerships, through lending and things and connections in order to work together to split the roles and responsibilities and finding deals, funding deals, and qualifying that way. So that was my goal. And it all depends on how you want to approach anything that you set your sights on is, okay, how am I going to do it? And what am I comfortable doing? If you're leveraging time or money or people, and then what that's going to look like for you. Because the whole reason why I quit my job was so that I wasn't working all the time. And that's what I tell people. It's
right.
Like, I am doing things way differently than, let's say, Pace Morby or, Ryan Pineda or these high level people have these huge businesses, but that's not what I wanted for myself.
Yeah, that's perfect because this podcast is about the mindful approach, and you set on your journey by creating a mindful approach, protecting your family, because like you said, a lot of people want to get into it and then they don't realize that this real estate investing is a lot of work. The more properties you have, the more upkeep they are. And if you have to pay to manage them, you still have to be involved in that or else you're going to be losing money. So I think it's interesting how you set out with that. How did you start building the relationships that got you to the opportunities and leverage that you now have? Because I think that's also so important. Relationships are really what can take you quicker through more than even just money. It's really about who you know. How did you get started where you are, getting into the field of investing and then meeting the right people?
So when I was working at my job, I was, Googling okay, how do I quit my job and get rich or something silly like that, right? I think we all do that. Well, I think we do. But, and then I found that a lot of people own real estate. And so I got a bigger pockets, starting connecting with people through that site, started going to meetups. And that really opened up my mind to the possibility of the wealth that real estate could create, because now I was seeing people who are proof of concept. And so after that, I'm not really one to sit on the sidelines. I did maybe use a bigger pocket calculator a few times and then just started jumping on deals. And I don't recommend that for everyone. I also, had a full-time job and we had a good amount of savings. We qualified for conventional loans. So we were in a different, we were able to financially qualify for a lot of things that not a lot of people beginning can do. And so I wanted to start with smaller projects because I didn't know, okay, am I even going to like this real estate investing thing? Is it going to work out for me? So while I had my salary and my W-2, I bought a condo and I figured, okay, if I buy a condo, I don't have to worry about the exterior work. There's an HOA that will help maintain the exterior parts. And so I wanted to minimize my risk by starting with condos. So I bought one condo as a flip, and then we bought one condo as a rental. And I said, okay, I'll try the flipping thing, see if I want to do that, or I'll try the rental thing, see if I want to be a landlord. And when we were working on the flip, I think that really, I seen a lot of things that not a lot of people seen because I've lived in condos before, and I grew up in affordable housing, so I know what it's like to live in close quarters with other people. And so that was kind of like, I don't want to say my gift, but I see a lot of things that people value. Like the backyard was overgrown, but I walked around the building seeing that if you just cut it down or maintained it, it looked out to a banana patch. So who would have, wouldn't want to have a nice view? So there's these little aspects that I learned along the way. And then being successful in that, I netted $103,000 off that first condo. I was cash flowing around $600 net a month on the rental. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like this can't be right. It's not that it was easy. It's just proof of concept. Everything that I was learning, the people that I put myself around, doing the calculations, doing the numbers, and not really second guessing it, just using pure logic had helped me just get over it. Because people have analysis paralysis, or, oh, what if my numbers are wrong? But if you have enough facts and enough due diligence to back it up, then just go for it, right? And for me, I kind of had that cushion where I could, if things went wrong with this condo, it's $300,000 versus buying, an $800,000 house here because the median home price is $1 million. So how I started to scale was doing projects on my own, having proof of concept, having that experience. And then for my third deal, I was able to raise, over $500,000 in private money because one, people seen me hustling out there, for lack of better words, but hustling on Instagram. I made sure that I shared my story with everyone across social media and across these different platforms, letting people know who I was, going to conferences, going to meetups and saying, hey, I'm going to go full-time in investing. I'm a civil engineer right now, but I want to quit my job. Do you have any deals that you need help with or that I can work with you on? And we can kind of split the roles and responsibilities and, combine powers basically. And so I think just having that mindset, being open, having that experience, having been successful in it. And even though I only did a few deals, people seen that drive in me and they wanted to be a part of it. And so my first private lender was actually another investor, and he was a little bit older, and he was like, man, I don't think I want to, be managing contractors anymore. It's just a lot of work and a lot of time. I'm thinking about lending. And I said, well, I'll take your money. Was basically, that sort of sense. It's an opportunity. It's not taking anyone's money, but we had that kind of rapport and relationship built from when I first started looking into what real estate investing was. And I feel like a lot of people get that genuineness from me, that I'm real, that I'm going to, even if I'm a beginner in the space, I'm going to make it known. Or if I've done a few deals, like, hey, this is what I've done. This is what I've been able to get through. These are the challenges, how I push through. And I would love to work with you on a project and see how, we can combine kind of forces and make it work. We're both, win-win solutions, if you may say that.
Yeah, I love you've used the term proof of concept twice, and I love it because I think it works for seeing what others do. And if you want people's money, or if you want to attract people to what you're doing, you have to have some proof that you are capable of doing it. You've used social media so well. I've followed you for so long, and I feel like the one thing I'll say about your social media to me that is the most important is that it's very, very obvious that you're authentic. So even you can talk about the investing and the proof of concept for the investing, but it's clear that one, you love houses and you love what you're doing, but also that you're an authentic person. And I feel like in the investing world, there's so many things being sold and so many classes that you can go wrong, that it's nice to see someone who's just basically putting it out there. You're obviously yourself on social, doing it, showing people the houses that you're going through. Do you think that social media was one of the biggest factors in helping you get like a little bit more credibility maybe before you had as many deals as some other people?
I think it has, and it also kept me top of mind to not only everyday people, but other realtors. That's how I've gotten pocket listing deals. That's how I've gotten partnerships because people like to do business with people that they like, but also that are successful. So if you show them, from the beginning of a deal to the end, or that you're still an active investor and you are running the numbers with them or showing them how, you're just giving a lot of value away that eventually it'll kind of come back to you. And majority of the people that I do partner with now, I make sure, there's a vetting process where I make sure the deal works out. I make sure that that person is on the same wavelength as me as far as morals and integrity, that we both communicate, because communication is key in any sort of relationship, that there's, very much, even to a sense, over communication. Like I want to know everything and then vice versa. So
Yeah.
that has been important. And just people even have come to me and want to lend on our projects because they want to be a part of, the overall mission and the things that I put out there. And like
Yeah.
I was telling you before, I'm just really one to see how I can make an impact and how I can, add value to other people, be the connector. So even people like Brandon Turner, I connected with him because he was, I think on his story on Instagram was like, hey, I need some lava rocks. Anybody? And luckily he lives on Maui. So I referred him to my uncle, helped him with
Yeah.
that. And so that was, however you can add value without, really expecting something back, just doing it, out of being genuine. I think people appreciate that because everybody wants
Yeah.
something from you nowadays, right? They're not willing to just be, some people are guarded too because of what they've been through. And granted, I've been through a lot too, but I found that being more open, it's a little hard at first when I was on social media to share a lot about my life or how growing up, and
Yeah.
even talk about money because money was never really talked about in our household and we always struggled. So even for me sharing, $1 million and $100,000, it's still, I'm still getting used to that. So don't think that you can't do it because you're not
Yeah.
comfortable. It comes with time.
Yeah. It is. I think money is always hard to talk about just because you don't know how people are going to perceive like how you're talking about it. But I think in
Mm-hmm.
investing, like numbers are pretty concrete. Like I paid this for this property. I made this because you can see what it sold for. So I think that's just part of the process. One thing that I thought was really interesting is that you really have a mission around parts of your investing. Like you do a lot of Section 8 rentals. And why is that so important to you? And how has it helped you kind of figure out how you can give back as part of being an investor? It's definitely not all about the money to you. Very little, really, from what I've seen. We all like the money that we make, but having an impact is definitely feels better holistically. How has that been an important part to make sure that it's you stick to your own mission while you're investing as well?
Well, a lot of the rentals that I have myself, because I'm involved in 100, 200 unit syndications, I can't really control that. However, the ones that I do own on my own, I like to work
Yeah.
with the people that are in, different circumstances like financial hardships, or if they need a second chance because of some prior life decisions. I grew up in low income housing with a single mom. We were constantly moving. I've probably been to every school on this island because she actually used to live in homes that were put up for sale. So once they sold, then we had to move to another one,
Mm.
but she got a discounted rent for living in those homes. And
Yeah.
she had 3 children. So I was constantly on the move and seeing that. And so I like to provide that chance to people. Of course, I do the due diligence background checks. I check with their current employers, their past rental or their past landlords. And even some of them don't have
Yeah.
it, or maybe they lost their job and then are just getting another one. So it all depends on your tolerance too for being flexible. But for me, I meet them.
Yeah.
Like I like that part of it. I never want to lose that human connection, or, it makes me appreciate my life too and where I've come from and then where I'm at now. So that's the reason why I like to do the extra legwork that comes with working with a Section 8 office, or wait an extra month for the first month's rent, because usually when you're working with the government office, they take about, a month or so to give you the first month's rent once they go through all the paperwork. So it isn't, it is kind of like a guaranteed set price as far as what the government will cover, but there still is some legwork in between, which I don't mind doing because for the rest of the year, they cover majority of the rent for most of my tenants. And
Yeah.
they really appreciate it when they're walking to a house that's newly renovated. A lot of times people that have these vouchers, they end up with kind of the lower end rentals. And so I like to give them a new place to
Yeah.
live, give them a second chance, and, you know, just do a little bit extra to give back that way.
Yeah, I think it's so nice to be I mean, part of owning real estate as a landlord is your own ability, like you said, to look a little bit beyond the numbers sometimes. If you meet someone and you want to help give somebody a chance, you have that opportunity if you have units that fit. I think that's great. In terms of how you went from like when you started and you just started on your own, how did you get into the syndication space, and let us know like what you're doing? Because I was reading through and right in our pre-call, you're like, oh, there's another option coming for, 80 some on units. How have you managed that transition and kind of stayed true to your own mission and what you want to do?
So even that has in regards to flipping, right? Because I live in a very small community. There's a housing shortage for a lot of rentals here, not only rentals, but first time home buyers. And so even for my flips, what I do is write those letters. All the agents are like, oh, we can't accept letters anymore. Write them, put the picture on. I want to know who's moving into these homes that we're flipping. And a lot of times I don't accept the highest offer. I accept the person that's going to be the best fit. And of course, hopefully close on time. But I've worked with a family that we did 9 extensions on our most recent multifamily that we sold. That was a house and then a detached cottage. But I knew that family needed a place to stay. They were offering more than the asking price. I was making a good amount. And so even us as real estate investors, it's like you come to a point, it's like, how much more money is this worth going with a cash buyer versus going with family that really needs this place? And so that's the other way you can give back while you're like flipping, which got a bad connotation, but you are adding housing that was, might have been previously vacant or run down. And now you're providing a new family with a home, but you don't always have to go with the highest price. So that's something that I'm very aware of in the homes that we do sell. And then so now that I'm getting into these bigger syndications or bigger projects, a few of them are helping those are affordable housing, or they work with Section 8. A few of them are not. And just to be real with you, I mean, you can't always, I'm going to get to a point where I want to, create an affordable housing project subdivision. Like that is ultimately my goal. But on the way there, I'm also wanting to be a part of these other projects, like an RV park that is fun, or, an 80 unit hotel, and just explore options, because I mean, I love what I do. I love investing, and I never knew the quality of life that it could bring you and bring other people. And so I think that's what people need to be aware of too, because I would be driving to job sites as an engineer looking around like, what are all these people doing walking around? They don't even have jobs, or, how are they affording to live? And now I'm one of those people, and I see it as like, you're not really trading your time for money anymore. You're just being very strategic with your investments, and that's making money grow for you. And that's, what I tell a lot of people, even if they're in their job, they're not really into investing, like take a step back and look at how much taxes you're paying, look at your retirement, see if there's other avenues like investing in other people's projects that you can put it to that's more of a better return, and just making those little shifts. Or even financially, if you're just getting started, you don't have any money, look at your expenses. Are you going to McDonald's every week? Are you, buying things that you don't necessarily need? Just like making those little tweaks in your budget or how you're investing things can really make a huge difference in how you build wealth for your family.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that people, it's a combination of staying in your W-2 or whatever income you can, as long as you can, until you can leave. But also, like you said, being smart with your expenses. I mean, that's basically house hacking. To be the most effective house hacker, you want to live in the smallest unit in your multi, just because that's going to make you the most money. And I think there is a part of that where you do need to learn from hustling a little bit and compromising maybe what you overall want to get the, those first couple deals going. In terms of your growth and like relationships. You, the same as me, have done a lot on Bigger Pockets. We were actually on back-to-back episodes on Bigger Pockets recently, 667 and 668. So I think that that's cool that I can have you on. But how have you used Bigger Pockets to help yourself and grow your meetups and your investor relationships? Because I've met hundreds and hundreds of people off of Bigger Pockets, and it's always been a great avenue for me to just connect with people and sift through to see who's real and who's not. But I found so many friends from Bigger Pockets. I wonder if you've had the same experience.
Well, same here. I mean, I've seen them on the episodes, I've talked to them, and then just seeing how I can, like, for instance, this podcast, right? It's like, okay, I can make time to be on this podcast and help, advertise for me and you as well, and just seeing how we can both help each other. And so even with Brandon Turner, he lives on Maui now, and getting him to be more a part of the meetups, and of course his time is very valuable, but just seeing how I can kind of navigate that. And even now, when I just went to a Bigger Pockets conference and met a lot of the people that I was connecting with online. And that was really cool, right? Because it's one thing to meet somebody over a Zoom versus meeting them in person. And I highly recommend, especially if you're new, to attend these events, go to these free meetups, or even if it costs a little bit of money, because there's going to be people there doing what you want to do, and you can connect with them that way and see, hey, maybe you have a skill of, you're really good at Excel and everybody needs help in the office. Or if you're a contractor, seeing if you can kind of partner in that way, or even just do some work for free. But honestly, I tell people to think about what they're good at and then present that to somebody, because you don't want an experienced investor trying to figure out where you fit into their business, because that just takes a lot more time for them to do it. But if you can come to me and say, hey, I'm really good at admin work. If you need help, organizing files or finding a different system, I can help you. So, and then thinking about when you meet these people, thinking about what do they need, or what do they need in their business right now that I can help them with, connect them with. And even when I was at Bigger Pockets conference, I made sure to go to all the tables, met David Green in person. I already knew Brandon, Mindy, and just a lot. Eric, who's the producer of the Bigger Pockets podcast, made sure that, when you go to these conferences or meetups too, make sure you are meeting people. You're going there with an intention, right? I want to, meet this specific person because this is what I want to be doing. And, I know a lot of people get scared too, especially because nowadays, if you are online or you are making content, a lot of people see you as like almost like a celebrity. Even Brandon, right? Like everybody always goes up to him. Yeah. But making sure that you kind of stand out in some sort of way, and that you can add to them, even if it's just buying their book, right? Hey, Brandon, I just bought your book.
Support.
Supporting them in some sort of way. And even a lot of us do have charities or things that you can donate to that would really like make a difference to us as well. So thinking about that definitely has come at it at a different angle that I think a lot of people recognize.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I'm going to get into some of the questions that you filled out. I know everybody fills out the questionnaire a little bit early, so I'm going to remind you of your answer, and then we'll talk about each one as we go. Your greatest influence in real estate, you said Ryan Pineda, because he was able to scale quickly, building wealth through real estate while balancing health, faith, and family at the same time, which is similar to your core values. Where did you first find him, and how did he impact your journey so far?
So I found him actually on Instagram. It was another person from Hawaii had went to one of his retreats. He didn't have a coaching program yet. I had done my first 2 deals, but I was still working full time. So I was the typical investor. How people usually start is I was the one going to Lowe's, grabbing material. I was meeting the contractors after work, paying cash. On the weekends, I was driving one of the trucks to the dump to unload it, like doing unnecessary things that I thought, okay, I'll help save time and money because they don't have to do it, or whatever the case may be. And so I knew after that, and I was successful doing it that way, but I knew I needed systems and processes to do it more efficiently and then scale, because I was like, I need to quit my job ASAP because I can't, manage both of these things at the same time. So I seen him on Instagram on somebody else's one, asked them about him. They're like, hey, he's starting a coaching program if you want to join. So I ended up, for me, I was like, oh, but I'm learning all this on Bigger Pockets for free and on YouTube. And so ended up joining his program. I think at the time it was like $10,000, which was like a lot to spend on a mentorship that I had no idea if it was going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I've learned it's not really about the mentorship itself and educating you on everything you need to know. It's about how you make connections in that mentorship, leverage that successful person for specific answers. But at the end of the day, it's about you and how much action you take on the advice that you're given from them. So it's not, I'm going to join this mentorship and it's going to make me successful. It's like, I'm going to join this mentorship, make these connections, have direct line of communication with this mentor who can definitely help me cut the learning curve by, however many years. I can do it. I've done all this in 3 years versus for me, I thought, okay, I'll buy one rental at a time and then I'll quit my job maybe in 5 years. So I quit my job like a month after I joined the mentorship. So it was a little drastic, but sometimes you need those people in your life or those mentors that will just tell you the real and you'll accept it. I already knew I made $100,000 in 45 days from my first flip. I only made $70,000 at my job. That took a year. He's like, it's a no-brainer. Why don't you just quit?
Yeah.
All you have to do is one deal a year and you're making way more than you are at your job. And so I needed that push and I needed somebody who had already been successful to tell me that. And then not only that, show me the way that works for me. So his business style is totally different than my business style, but I still learn a lot every day from the things that he's doing. And you can formulate any mentorship you're in, you can formulate it however it works best for you. So I think that's it's something for people to realize is there's not an end all be all as far as mentorships, and you don't have to do exactly what they're doing, but they have connections, the lenders, contractors, if you're going into different markets, if you need to connect with a partner in some sort of other state, it's just, there's so many connections that you can get from being in mentorships. That's why I'm in several different ones now, but that's how he's helped me scale and grow and just gain confidence, because a lot of times in the beginning, we're scared to take on these like bigger projects. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a part of a 263 unit, in Florida and like 110 in Austin. And it's, it's just another project, which is good. But at the same time, there's a lot more that goes into it. But I would have never thought, if you asked me when I quit my job in 2020, if I would be doing this so quickly. Now it's only 2022. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. The opportunities that come.
Yeah, what you said it.
Yeah.
It's so important. It's really action. I've talked about this with a couple other guests. It's not necessarily whether you should or should not pay for these high-end mentorships. It's always going to be what you're going to do with it. And sometimes for a lot of us, we need to put some skin in the game to make sure that we do it. So like if you pay 10,000 or 50,000, I don't think that's good or bad per se either way. It's just about, like you said, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to treat the relationships that you make? And are you motivated to make that work for you? I think the only drawback is people who pay the money and think the money is going to immediately turn them into a system and they don't have to do anything. Without action, you're going to be stuck in inaction and nothing's going to work. That was fantastic. Here's the next one. This is great too. Most important trait for a real estate investor to have. You said solution mindset. Explain what you mean. I love it. I know I have my thoughts on it, but I want to hear what that is to you.
So anytime I come into something that's hard or seems kind of impossible, I always think, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that can happen? And how do I mitigate that? Or who do I know that has maybe been through this that can help me? And so I think just thinking of solutions, not only for yourself and your own journey, but as you deal with sellers. So a lot of us real estate investors know that probably the best deals you're going to get is off market. So I started door knocking, cold calling, talking directly to homeowners. And a lot of times it wasn't like, I got this cash offer, I can buy your house, and close in 7 days. It was like, hey, I pulled you up on this list and, do you need my help or do you need other connections? I want to, talk this through and see what you need, because I'm in a network of real estate that has different connections in the real estate world. So if you need a lender, or if you need to get a personal loan because you're in some sort of financial situation, or if you need a real estate agent, like I'm not licensed, but if you need any of those contacts, then feel free, I can help you with that. Or there's county assistance programs, especially during COVID, that you can go and get mortgage assistance or something to help pay your bills if they're in financial need. And so coming at it from that perspective, I think has really changed my approach and set me apart from my competitors. Is like, okay, I kind of want to be the last resort, which is like the opposite of sales, right? It's like you want to be the first one, but I position myself to be the last one because as well, I live in a small community. So I never want to seen as being taken advantage of anyone, or them being like, oh,
Yeah.
I should have done it this way, or should have went this route. It's like, I want to be, I can help you, but I also need to make money as well for my services. So, but I come at it at that perspective where I want them to be able to save their house if they're in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, and I want them to find other solutions. But if we can work together, then that would be great too. And so that's how I've kind of got creative with deals too. I've partnered with sellers. They call it a novation, where the sellers keep their mortgage in place. I bring renovation funds. They're still on the title, and then we sell it, and then we make a profit that way. So they never have to come out of pocket for anything. I've done, if they own the house outright, seller financing, so there's so many different ways and avenues that you can find solutions. So I think if you are more focused on, okay, what do they need and how can we work it out, versus, okay, this is my, maximum allowable offer cash, and, you're only thinking it that one way, then you probably won't get the deal. If you're kind of open to different options and they are too, and they're flexible, then you can find, those sorts of solutions to problems.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think our philosophies are similar. For me, off market, I'm thinking the same. My key words are win-win and fair.
Yes.
What can we do that's going to help us both? Like you said, it's so important to try to make the relationship work and make sure that it's fair. But like you said, also be clear, like, listen, I can't buy it for just what you want. I'm an investor. I want to make money, but I want to make sure you get out okay also. And I think one thing that you mentioned that's silly is the majority of off-market acquisition postcards that go out are all say the same thing: quick for cash, quick for cash. But like 90% of the people don't even want quick for cash. They want you to help them solve a problem and or figure out where they're going, or help them with an air situation. It's not cash is not necessarily king in that off-market acquisition world. Like you said, if you live in the community, you don't want to create a reputation that you're there to try to fleece people of their properties. So yeah, I really appreciate what you said. It's very similar to what I do. And I think a lot of new investors could learn from those, which again is a more mindful approach on how to help people instead of like how to get the most deals.
Right. And I think
awesome. The next one.
An important thing to touch on as well is that these people might need the cash, but they have nowhere to go. So if they sell their house to you, so being mindful of that too. So I've offered like 6 months rent, put down their deposit. A lot of times they might not have good credit. So you putting maybe a double deposit down for them is really going to just help them move on to the next phase of their life that they have no idea how they're going to do it. So even though they might be in a dire situation, they might not sell to you because they have nowhere to go. If you help solve that problem, then they're more likely, be easier to work with and then sell their house to you, because now they're like, okay, now I know where I'm going next.
Exactly. That's great advice as well. Next one is, what is wrong with the real estate investing world now? You said one that I'm so all in on. Too many people are running their numbers optimistically instead of conservatively. Explain where you've seen that and how that can take such a poor turn on someone's end profit.
So right now I work with a lot of newbies. I'm also a coach in Ryan Pineda's program. And I see people, especially in Hawaii, our price points so our medium home price is a little over $1 million. And so when they see, oh, I can buy something at 900,000 and then I can sell it at $1 million, it's like that 100,000 in between is not your profit. You got to think about renovations. You have to think about closing costs. There's commission fees if you plan to list it. So there's a lot of people that are not running their numbers correctly, or they think, oh, the market's been so good, I'm going to get over asking. So I'm just going to plan for that from
Yeah.
the beginning, when it's like, no, go by comps. But especially in today's market, you don't even go by comps. You go at least 10% less than that, because now the market is shifting. You
Yeah.
plan for longer hold times instead of, the average was like 3 months. Now you go maybe 6 or 8 months, or even close to a year. Depends what market you're in and the price point, because these higher price homes aren't going as fast as they would, and not a lot of people qualify for them anymore. So keeping that in mind. And then also for contractors, my husband is a plumbing contractor, so our material prices are going up almost every day. So keeping in mind that
Yep.
even the rehab budget is probably going to be more. It's probably going to be more of a holding time. Your ARV, definitely plan for less. Even if you have all these comps showing, it could be a particular number, plan for less than that. And I see, so many people are motivated and excited to jump in, but I always tell them, like, hey, be conservative, because the market is shifting. But even though it's better to make more money than end up with a loss, and I'm seeing a lot of these newer investors now hop in and lose money, and it's kind of scary. So I mean, just being realistic with them will help them more than just cheering them on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think now especially is one of the worst times to be overly optimistic, not in terms of if you're going to do well long term, but with your numbers. I'm the same. I'm always like putting my lowest ARV possible, because then I feel like I get a windfall when I do well. But like right now, with high rates and price compression, you really have to be extra tight on your numbers. And even coming in under that, I do think there's going to be a lot of deals out there for us who are looking to flip, but you really need to know your numbers well. And like you said, we can't be using the appraisal values from the last 3 months, because that's all scaling down as we go. So you really need to be taking, a haircut on all of those. Those are great points as well. And now on the opposite end, one way we could all collectively make the real estate investing world better. This you've touched on a little, but we'll just talk about it a little bit again. It's remembering the human aspect of the transaction that we've talked about a lot. But I really think like what you've talked about resonates so well with me, that like your core business model is really helping other people. It will in turn, turn into a profit. And like you said, in syndications, you have less control over that. But I think like on the island where you're local and you're known, this is where you can really make a difference. Is this what you think would help others if they focused on it more instead of just numbers, numbers, numbers?
Yeah, so I definitely have grown to the extent that I have because of other people. And so, of course, I'm trying to help. You always try to see how you can add value to others who are higher than you, or maybe more advanced in their career, but also reach back and try to help people that are just starting. And so that's been my biggest way to kind of give back, is especially on Maui and Hawaii in expensive markets, being like, hey, if you want, I got this deal under contract, it's in Wailuku. If you want to buy it from me from the price I got, I can show you how to get a hard money loan. It's going to be different than doing the conventional route, but you can have your first home. I can hook you up with my contractor, show you how to go through the permitting process, and just kind of give back to people that way, or show them how to invest and what they can do depending if they have time or if they have money. Just direct them in different avenues and different options they have with investing, and show them that it's not all that scary, because a lot of people think like, oh, isn't investing risky? And it is if you're not doing your numbers correctly, but there are
Yeah.
different ways you can get into it and still make money, but you don't have to be making a lot of money in order to reap the benefits of investing. And so I think just educating people has now become one of my focuses to give back, since my portfolio is kind of stabilized here. And then now I'm getting into bigger projects. I think, okay, how else can I help people? And that's through having meetups here. That's through posting content on Instagram that inspires people or educates
Yeah.
them on how to get started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's really, podcasts help that. I mean, I started this to help people get that kind of unfiltered view of what it's like. So hearing from people like you and all of the diverse guests that we've had and like that we've listened to before we were on Bigger Pockets really helps you figure out, like I can do this. And then when you meet the people, like you said, at meetups in real life, then you really have a one-on-one relationship with people who are a little bit ahead of you, a little bit behind you. And I think that makes it easier. So your book is a familiar one to a lot of us, but I love to talk about it because it's always on all of our lists. It's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When did you read that in your journey? I think that's always interesting. Did you read it like when you were younger and then it just came back later? Or did you read it like right at the time you were like, I'm going to do this right now?
Yeah, so I read it like right when I got started. I think no, I read it when I was 30. I didn't start investing until I was 33. But it kind of got my mind frame, my mindset changed because my first house that I bought for me and my family was a fixer upper. And so we bought it. It was a foreclosure. We were looking at homes that were like 700,000 at the time. This is 2018. And my husband was like, yes, we can live in like this nice community. It's a new build. And so I was like, oh my gosh, but like if something happens to you or something happens to me, that would put a huge strain on our family. And so I started looking at foreclosures and just driving around, took him to our house that we live in now. He was like, no, we're not buying this. It was like overgrown trees, just like everything like falling apart. And I was like, yeah, but it's only 400. Like, imagine if we just put, a little bit of money into the renovations and we'll still have a mortgage that we can afford. And so we ended up doing that. And along the way, I guess I want to point out this too, like along the way, along your journey, find those people or ask the questions that you have coming up, because we've ended up fixing the house, used all our money from our savings to do it. And then I went into the bank and I asked the teller, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not used to having such a small savings. And we just threw all this money into our house. And she was like, have you looked into doing a HELOC or a cash out refinance? And I was like, what are those things? Like, I had no idea, right? All I knew is like, go to the bank to get a loan and then you buy a house. That's all I knew. And then so now she was throwing at me different types of loan products that I had no idea about. So we ended up doing that, doing a cash out refi, got all our money back. Plus we opened up a HELOC and got 100,000 from that. And that's kind of how we started our journey of being able to buy these rentals and start the flipping business, just because we asked a few questions. If I didn't ask or was curious enough, I would have left all that money in the house and, never had started my journey. So I think reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad just kind of changed that mind frame to leveraging debt is okay. A lot of people are scared of debt and they think, what if I can't pay my bills, if I lose my job and this happens? But if you leverage it against something that's going to make you money, like I used it to buy our first rental, and I knew that the income from that was I was going to have cash flow. So it'd be paying for itself, plus I'd be making money. It's like, okay, this is a no-brainer. But you use calculators like the ones on Bigger Pockets are good ones to start with to determine, okay, is this going to make money or not? So I think that just helped me be okay with more debt and leveraging that for good debt.
Yeah. And when you start to leverage, remember with real estate, I mean, you're leveraging things that are likely to appreciate. The better a buyer you are, if you know the markets well, you're going to be gaining appreciation on your leverage, which is going to outpace what you're paying, for the loan. So I think it's really important. Those are great points. One last thing before I wrap up and get all of your information and all of the places that people can find you. What is one piece of advice that you would give to just brand new real estate investors who are looking to get started now based on your experience over the last 3 years, which has been a pretty meteoric rise, but like a very mindful one? What would you hand down to them as just one piece of advice that you think everybody would be well served to listen to?
I guess just determine what your risk level is, what your risk tolerance is, and what you are looking for. So say you want to replace the income from your job, you want to get into rentals because you want to cash flow, or you want to get into flipping so that you can have these bigger amounts of cash coming in. You got to determine which one you want and just go all in on like one of them. For me, I had options because I had already bought a house. I knew what that process was like. I had a really good job that could offset if I did make a few mistakes in the investing world. So just determine how much risk you can take and then pick one avenue and go for it. And a lot of people pick wholesaling because you initially don't have to come into it with a lot of money, and you can get that practice of talking to sellers, running your numbers, but not actually be in charge of buying the house. So I've never wholesaled before, but that's what a lot of new era investors I see start with. Or you could also, see how you could add value to an experienced investor in your market locally. Go to those meetups, meet somebody that you want to be like, see how you can add value. You might have to work for free in the beginning, but everybody always needs help in some sort of area. So I would suggest trading, just seeing how you can add value to them, making connections with them. And then, hopefully that'll work out to more, but not go in it with expectations, but go in it with the mindset of learning and being comfortable. Because even for my first mentor, like, he's the reason why I was able to let go and quit my job, because that's a huge thing for a lot of people, is their job is their stability, quote unquote. But at the same time, you have way more potential than you realize, and you could be living the life that you always dreamed without even, being a different person. And I think that's the key thing to remember, is like, money doesn't make you a different person. It just amplifies who you already are. And you're able to do way more and give back to way more people and help more people if you have that ability to be financially free.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you bring your A game. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. Now, where excited. Can all of these people? No, I'm really glad. I mean, I listened. I've been following you for so long, and like I said, I was really always impressed by the authenticity. I'm always like investor to investor, always attracted to people who I know, like, oh well, when I meet them, they're going to be exactly like that, and you are literally exactly like you appear to be online, which is great to know, which makes, I think, more verified and more credible, when you go into using other people's money or building syndication deals. So where can everybody find you? I think your Instagram is probably the best spot for at least a lot of content. That's Invest with Zasha, right? That's Zasha. That's Instagram. And then what are the other best places where people can find you or where you're doing other content?
So I have just started my website. There's a few podcasts that I've been on. I feature that in there as well, zashasmith.com. Or I've recently been getting into the LinkedIn world, and that's been interesting. I think I'm just under Zasha Smith. So those are kind of, Instagram is my main social media place that I go on. And then now I've been starting LinkedIn, my website, but message me. Even though I have other people that are helping me with these platforms, I always, if there's a message that comes directly or they can't answer or they know to filter it to me, then I definitely make sure that I get back to those people. And if you are new to the space, follow John, follow me, and follow, any other people that you admire, and reach out to them. Of course, do your due diligence of like being specific with your questions, not like, how do I get started in real estate? I mean, there's so many different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
We will be more than willing to help you if it's something a little bit more specific that we can just quickly direct you and be inspired by other people. I mean, a lot of the connections that I have made, like, a lot of people still check their own social media. So you can make connections that way without even, a lot of people think, oh, others are untouchable if they get to a certain level, but they're really not. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Most of us care about others and want to help. So yeah, feel free to reach out on any of those. And thank you, John, for having me on here.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. You're a fantastic guest, and I look forward to staying connected with you and watching all these deals that you're doing and building. It's been a great rise, but great to talk to you. Thanks again so much for coming on. For the listeners, if you love this episode, and I know that you did, because Zasha had so much good information. One, listen to it again, because I know you probably need a second run through. But if you like it, on all podcasts, especially ones that we have great guests on, which are hopefully all of these, if you can do us a favor, subscribe on YouTube, like the podcast, leave a 5-star review. Those are things that help us who are building content all over the interwebs do better. So we really appreciate it. And Zasha, thanks so much for coming on. I look forward to staying in touch with you. This was episode 18 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Zasha Smith. Thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it so much.
Aloha.